Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another great fun episode of Next to Madison. I'm your host, Madison Malloy, and on today's episode, we are talking about the rise of AI, the impact of global mental health, especially in war-torn regions like Ukraine, and how one amazing woman and her team are using their AI company to form a new amazing project called Mental Help Global that is going to use the power of AI to provide the much needed mental help for those who are suffering or there are not enough resources out there. So it's unbelievable. I'm going to just get to the interview because this woman explains it exactly. It's unbelievable. So definitely stay tuned. And, you can find out more about kind of what's really going on and especially specifically over in Ukraine and, how we can get involved and how we can help. This is an amazing woman. This woman is just so inspiring. She blew me away, and I'm so honored that she was on the show. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Clara Kaluderovic. You're gonna absolutely love her. So we'll be right back after this brief message on Next to Madison.
Hey, it's Madison Malloy. I just wanted to remind you to make sure you grab a copy of my book, Time to Lighten the Fuck Up. It is a great, funny self-help book that is going to help you get out of your own way. I have already helped thousands and thousands of people, and they are on their way to living their dream life, and I want every listener to be able to live their dream life as well. So grab a copy of the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or even the audiobook on Audible. Now back to the show.
We are back with our amazing guest. I'm so pumped to have her on. Such an inspiring, amazing woman. You guys will love this interview. Clara is on the show today. She is a serial entrepreneur, very successful woman. She is the co-founder and CEO of MHG, which stands for Mental Help Global, and also the co-founder of an AI company called X2, which she will share more about. So Clara, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here with you, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So explain to us a little bit of your background before we get into what you're doing.
So my background is a little bit all over the place. I graduated high school pretty early. I was 15, and my parents made me take local,
Oh my God.
local college classes. They didn't want me to leave the state just yet, and I immediately kind of moved to West Africa once I finished school, and I did oil and gas operations. My family comes from an oil and gas background, so I spent quite a bit of time in West Africa, in Nigeria.
Wow.
Kind of learning the culture, doing oil and gas, logistics, and getting to know the people. One of my favorite parts was seeing the technology scene that was quite booming in Lagos. Came back to the States, had my two boys who are kind of my lifeline and everything, and started working in technology right away when I came back. As part of a company, we were working on secure chip technology. Chips are everywhere. Future is AI and big data. And so we're looking at different solutions on how we could secure systems. And we also looked at ways to build immutable cloud-based data systems. After those two companies, I started working on data centers and AI. And currently that's what my co-founder and I are working on, is how you take this massive problem in the AI and data center industry of massive energy consumption, water, and how you can retrofit some of these systems to power them a little cleaner, more sustainably. And we, through that, got into looking at kind of globally what's wrong with AI models, what's lacking. And we found that most of them are developed out in English. And I kind of remember my time in West Africa, and you see these incredible young entrepreneurs and innovators. And we wanted a way to give them a backbone to power what they're doing and building. And so our goal is to go to regions where the AI is kind of underdeveloped in their local vernaculars, and help them have the tools to build it out from scratch. So we have a very cool partnership at the American University of Sulaymaniyah, which is in the northern region of Iraq and Kurdistan. And we're building out kind of an AI lab there to capture Turkish and Arabic and Kurdish, and build out language models that people can work off of an open source innovate in. And similarly, we're doing this in a few other countries too. So it's been a journey, but kind of it all
Wow.
sustainability and ethical AI and, kind of using technology in places where it's a little bit underrepresented.
That's a It's amazing. I'm like blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh. How do you have time for anything else to sleep?
A little bit of sleep, lots of coffee. I have two boys as well, so
Wow.
normally it's just kind of powering through the day, but I find that doing what you enjoy, it's really not so tough, even when you have really long travel weeks or late nights. It's I just really love what I do.
Oh, and that is such a key, right? So, as a successful businesswoman and a mom of two, what is your morning routine?
So I get up really early. I get up around 4 because I want to have at least 2 hours to kind of clear what I may be stressed about before my boys get up. So I normally get up, I email, check in with our teams because a lot of them are working on other time zones. So, Ukraine, we're doing an initiative there for mental health. And so, kind of their afternoon is our early morning and they think I get up too early, but it's kind of I feel better checking in. Lots of coffee.
Yeah.
My boys, I like to take them to school myself, so I drop them off and then just go right back to kind of juggling the different projects that we have. And then most weeks there's some travel component to it of, going to meet somebody we need to kind of debrief on the project or just traveling over there to check in. So
Oh
the
my,
week varied, the mornings are normally the same, lots of coffee. And then, just trying to find an hour here or there to de-stress a little bit.
yeah. So, what time are you going to bed?
Midnight probably
Okay,
depending
so we
on
need
the
more
day.
sleep, huh? That's yeah.
I'm not advertising that, but probably a little bit sleep deprived. But there's lots to be done, and you go to places like Kiev, which I just came back from on Sunday, and you hit the time zone differently, so you're up anyways. But all night people are getting woken up by air raid sirens, and please go to the shelters and several
Yeah.
times a night. So coming back here and lacking sleep because I'm working on stuff is really I can't say I mind it.
Yeah, it's giving you a totally different perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't we go into that since you mentioned it? Because you are working on a fantastic, amazing project, the MHG, over in Ukraine. So let's go into that.
So, so I guess the backstory of this, I met a wonderful woman named Mitzi Purdue
Who's
who
been on the show?
been
She's
on the
wonderful.
show. I had to do it. She's incredible and a force of nature, and she took this interest in Ukraine when the war started. She's been writing articles about it,
Yeah.
donating her time, her funds. She's really taken it up. Her and I met at an event. She heard me speaking about AI, and I mentioned that I'm part Ukrainian. My mother is from Kiev, and we just sat down and we started talking about Ukraine and what can be done. And actually, it was through one of her stories that I learned how big of a crisis there is right now in mental health in Ukraine. And it makes sense. They have a war going on, but there's people I talk to every day on ground, and you just have no idea how bad it is until somebody really gives you the numbers.
Yeah.
And so we got to talking, and I said, why don't we, find an AI solution for this? Because the gap is just incredibly large, and it's not getting better. They estimate somewhere between 1 and 10 therapists for every 100,000 people in Ukraine right now. And the estimate of people needing care is well over 15 million. They say about half the population needs some kind of mental health support.
Yeah.
And it's just tough to do. You need to balance resources. You need more people. It's a tough problem to solve. And so we decided to use technology for good in
Yeah.
this scenario. And so we've built a partnership with the American University of Kiev. We've sent hardware and kind of our tech expertise from my private sector team who works with me and myself. And so we're building out an AI model to both give mental health support, gather research back so that, ministries and government and NGOs on ground can better allocate care and know what's needed where, get a better real-time update of what's happening, because since the war started, it's been very difficult to track this. And then the third part will be we do want to interconnect. There's a lot of really good NGOs and people doing therapy support and trying to help on ground, but there's kind of a lack of, it's not like here you Google, I need help, where can I go? Right now it's tough to find there. So one of our goals is to interconnect the very fragmented system that we're currently seeing in Ukraine.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're utilizing AI to do this. So obviously to improve the tracking systems, provide more resources. So is this going to be something like where they can just get online mental health help?
Yep. So we're building this, platform totally free, accessible 24 hours a day. We're building it in several languages so that
Wow.
people there can access it. They'll be able to log on similarly to, most people have used Chat GPT to
Yeah.
edit an email or edit something. Our interface will be quite similar, where people can just log on from their phone or their computer. They'll be able to create a login. We ask a few questions that are, health related to better guide care. People do have the option to get care anonymously. We feel it's important in Ukraine because, the system, they inherited a very old Soviet system of mental health care. And so the acceptance of getting mental health support is not quite widespread. It's becoming talked about much more, but it's a very tough man, tough person mentality. And so you have a lot of people who need help and feel a little bit stigmatized to go get it. So we're going to offer this anonymous option. And then we're going to onboard first-time people onto the platform, tell them that, hey, this is AI. This is how we've trained it. This is how we're building it. This is what it should and should not be used for. And then from there, they'll be able to get on and actually get talk therapy from our app and or not app, I guess, mobile or desktop version.
Yeah.
They'll be able to text with it, talk to text. And as we get more data, as we get more feedback, have more demo groups that train this out for us, we're going to offer more personalized care, and we're going to expand what we are actually able to treat for. We want to take a very conservative approach from the start. So it's going to be more limited talk therapy, and we're going to refer out to therapists much sooner. And then as we get better, we hope that we can help offload a little bit of the burden on therapists, a little bit more than we are going to be starting with.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you feel since you're on the ground there, like how the mental health of the people overall is?
It's really tough to be there on ground, frankly. It's both energizing and sobering. I spent summers going to Kiev to visit my family. My grandfather is still there, and it's always been this very vibrant city, and people have gone through a lot. They've gone through the Soviet collapse, Chernobyl,
Yeah.
World War II. I mean, it's a very resilient population. I was
Yeah.
just on a call with someone. She's from the States. She's supporting how she can, and they took this delegation to the front line, and she's surprised that even though they're on the front line, people are there and they're doing business and school as usual. They had 2 missile attacks while they were there. People are just carrying on. They're building schools in the subway, in the metro. They're just trying to have this continuation of life. But you feel it much more than you used to in some of these events because there's been so much displacement. There have been so many families that have been split apart. I think you've really had this displacement that we haven't seen with some of the other conflicts and issues that Ukraine has gone through. And so you're really starting to feel it. Similarly with the youth, I spoke at this summit, and last time I was in Kiev 2 months ago as well. You talk to this group of really smart kids in their late teens, early 20s, and they're bright. They were in technology. They had these beautiful futures planned, and now they're really wondering and evaluating, how can I switch up my future? How do I switch up my plans? How do I change this grand idea that I had and make it work for wartime and for supporting my country and for supporting my family? So working with them in particular and taking their questions is probably where you feel it the most, because they were just there on the edge of going on to this
Yeah.
future, like kids here going to college, and suddenly they've had to totally reevaluate and reshift their life plans. And one of the lead therapists that we have at AUK who's working with us, we were talking this morning very early at 5 a.m. my time, and she was telling me, one thing we really need to have this therapy model talk about is relationships and care, because you have so many men here who are in the armed forces, and were there and then their wife left the country or their girlfriend and she met somebody else and we're still here and kind of what does our future look like? How do we date? Is it okay for us to have kids? Can we
Oh my
sustain our kids?
gosh.
So it's really existential and it's been really through having those conversations with people who are there living it every day where you feel that. In news articles, they tend to focus on the overall picture, but when you really get into the day-to-day, someone's routine and how they're now thinking about the next 6 months of their life, it's quite shocking.
Yeah, it's just like, we take for granted sometimes what we have, here in America. Because, a lot of places go through this. But it sounds like these people are just absolutely resilient.
Incredibly resilient. And I think what's so shocking is Ukraine, it's a country that was very westernized to some extent. I remember
Yeah.
going to Kiev in the early 2000s and people were so excited when this McDonald's opened. And I come from the States. We have a lot of locations everywhere. And people were thrilled. And they're like, like Apple Store, it was kind of this, little sibling of the United States. They really
Yeah.
wanted to copy what we had and to grow that way. And I really think about it as, it's like I'm calling in from Houston. It's like if we woke up tomorrow and we were told, okay, we're on lockdown, we're going to war with one of our neighbors. It would be a total shock. It'd be a total disruption. And I think that's how a lot of people there felt. They felt like we have this normal life, we have this routine and these plans. What do we do now? It's just total shock. And I think comparing it to how we would maybe react here. I think they've done a phenomenal job of taking on let's make the most of it mentality. I can't imagine in Texas if
Yeah.
tomorrow we were told, okay, we're switching to wartime mode. I really can't
Ugh.
imagine how people here would handle that.
I know. It's like sometimes you don't realize how you would handle a crisis until it's put in front of you.
Yeah, and that's, kind of
Yeah.
the question they're going through now is how do we get through this? What do we do? How do we rebuild? And, for us, of course, military aid and these, big solutions are absolutely necessary, but we're operating somewhat with the optimistic hope that, things will resolve. What do you do about this generation that has gone through extreme stress, extreme anxiety, massive life changes? What does the next 10 years look like for them? You can have
Yeah.
what their version of victory looks like, but in 10 years you have a population that's gone through a lot. And they're going to need support and they're going to need help, learning what it's like to go back into the workforce to get used to, they've gotten used to this new normal of wartime. How do you get out of that new normal and back into, a normal lifestyle like they had before? I think that's going to be quite a shift and adjustment. You see it here with massive events we've had in the US, 9/11, people who are on ground, survivors and people, family of medics and people who went to help. It affected their life for a very
Completely.
long time. And that was one massive event. They're now living it every single day and have been since 2022. It's gonna be something we all globally, I think, have to step in and help. And of course, not just Ukraine, there's these conflict zones everywhere. And one of our
Yeah.
goals is to build this out in Ukraine and then take it to other places to support as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see now with, a new administration, this war ending or
You know, it,
unsure?
it's tough to predict. I mean, the only thing, we can speak to is that I know the people on ground when I was just there is right before the election. So you hear that a lot. You hear kind of what people anticipate will happen. Who knows? I know the people there are hoping that the US will continue to do, the right thing to support them, to view this as one piece that's not isolated, but part of this global interconnected system, that if this country, is not allowed to have their version of democracy, what happens elsewhere, what happens
Yeah.
globally. That's
Yeah.
their hope. Who knows? I can only hope and say that I do hope we continue to find ways to support Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's such a polarizing question. Some people have thought, we need to do more in Ukraine, we need to do less. But you really, you spend time there and you're talking to normal people who view the United States as a complete lifeline to their, existence right now. They're saying, look, we're so thankful. Without you, we don't know what our lives would be. We've lost kids. We don't want their loss to not mean anything.
Ah,
And you go
I
to
know.
the Maidan area where they had the revolution, in 2014, and now the square is relatively closed off to traffic. And I remember it 2 years before that. I think it was Euro 2012. They had it all
Yeah.
shut down for soccer, and it was happy and cheerful and totally different international experience. 2 years later, you had the revolution. My grandma, who was around 80, went and participated in it. She was there, saying, "Look, we want a better future. We want more freedoms. I want better for this nation." She passed away a few weeks before the war, so we couldn't go to her funeral. We couldn't go there, and then we're here. We saw what happened, and now going back much more for this work we're doing in technology, people are just hoping that it's okay. And now I just went to Maidan when I was there. It's covered in flags as memorials for sons and daughters of Ukraine who have died, for people from the global community who have come and supported. It's pictures, and it's a giant memorial now. This revolution
Wow.
spot is now a place where you see people coming and laying flowers and crying and just really mourning. It's a mourning and a loss for the nation. And who knows what will happen, but I hope the new president does continue to recognize that and does feel for the
Yeah.
going through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can come to some sort of resolution. And because it's
I hope
just,
so.
war is just one of those things. It just makes me so upset. It's just fighting for power. But the thing is, they're not fighting on the front lines. It's the innocent victims that are being, accused. So it's like if you're going to start a war, you have to go to the front lines. Like
I
it's
know
just
that's
awful.
that's the mentality and approach I take. It's not, to me, it's not totally political. I know for many, it comes down to debates and aid and everything, but it's at the end of the day, it's about people that are there. You
It's
see
humanity. Yeah.
women who are terrified with their babies in bomb shelters and under the city. And it's just, I think about my own kids, and I can't imagine packing them up
No.
tomorrow, taking them underground and saying, "Look, we're going to sit here for hours. And this is it." They're kids, they're active, they want to run around, they want to be outside. And you're saying, "This is our new existence. We're going to hide and we're going to be here, and this is for your safety." And they even get stressed worrying about me when I go there, because they've followed along, and they kind of keep an eye
Yeah.
on global and the world because of what I do. And when I go there, they get nervous and they're like, "Are you okay? Are you going to get shot?" And I'm like, "No, Kiev is safe. There are places where people are hurt, but I can't imagine for the kids actually there on ground how they're thinking and feeling about this."
Oh my
It's
gosh, that they even
terrible.
have to think about this.
Mhm.
It's just crazy. So how do you and Mitzi stay safe when you're over there?
Well, I will say Kiev does feel much safer, and compared to, what I've heard from other people going towards the front line. We have not gone in that direction. We primarily will go to Kiev so that we can check in with our university partners and the people that we need to meet there who are supporting this. Even there, though, you do feel the air raid sirens. It feels uncomfortable. You're kind of, making do, but it's not the day-to-day life. So I when I go, I don't even necessarily worry about my safety there, because I'm just seeing that the people there living every day who are
Yeah.
facing this and trying to have a job and a family and dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with here, but in a very tough situation.
Yeah, my gosh. Well, God bless you for doing all that stuff. And yeah, you don't think about it, even though they're resilient and they've been through so much trauma, through their history. They're tough, they're resilient, I don't know if Americans could handle that. I really don't. I'm not sure. You
It's a
know?
shock to the system. I don't think the Ukrainians thought they could handle it until they had to, and
Yeah.
on so many fronts, you see it with what they're doing with technology. You have groups of people who were in IT, who were in politics, who were in all these different fields, and they were, faced and taken up the challenge of, okay, let's make something that can protect human life in Ukraine, stop on the front lines and make a difference. They've come together with drones, and what they've done now is really, it's just astounding. They've sunk in, a huge part of the Black Sea fleet. They're doing this with drones and technology and innovation. And I had an interesting conversation with one of the technologists there, and he's like, "We are working so hard to do this because we would rather lose a drone than lose a human life. So for them,
Yeah.
they're trying to make up that difference. Of course, Russia has a much larger population, bigger force, right? It's the big brother next door. And they're making up for that gap with the incredible innovation and that resilience. And, they're kind of designing tomorrow's technology for today's war, which, if the US was tasked with that same problem, we would have a much harder time doing it as quickly as they have, but they've been forced to just because of survival. And I think the same with the mentality they're adapting. They're just, we have to do this, or we're not going to be here anymore. And,
Yeah.
talk to a lot of these, 20, 30-year-olds, and they are just stubborn and they're absolute about that. They're like, we don't have an option. We have to do this. We have to innovate. We have to stay strong. We have to keep fighting because we have our sons and we have our husbands and we have our brothers on the front line, and we have to stay strong for them.
Wow. So are any of the frontline soldiers using the mental health services?
So we are rolling this out very conservatively because we want to make sure that it's incredibly accurate before it goes anywhere.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
are having some demo groups. Right now we're starting, within the university, demoing it there. As this grows, we're going to continue to add focus groups to test it. A lot of work has been done towards veterans because, they're, of course, in this sense, neediest set of candidates for trauma care, for mental health care. But we are going to target more groups in that. We're going to try to, as this expands and gets better, and we get more data, add something specific for kids, something specific for,
Yeah.
of a child, harassment, something like that, so that we can really pinpoint and target and get people specific care. Right now, it's going to start out quite general, but the demo groups for it are going to be highly focused. They will include active armed forces. They will include veterans, women, kids. And then from there, we hope that we can grow and continue to make it more accurate of a caregiver. And then similarly, on the flip side, as we get this care and we get these results from focus groups, as you have mental health care providers come to the country, or
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
areas too, they will be able to get up to speed faster. Our goal in this is not to replace traditional therapy. It's really to loosen it and relieve a little bit of the burden on the system, and then also to build a tool that can help caregivers give better care. And our hope is that as we have these demo groups work on these issues, when a caregiver goes to a new group, say a group of 20, we're hoping that at some point, as the AI gets really developed out, they can bring the AI, have
Yeah.
people interact with it, and then the interaction will be able to give feedback to the provider and say, hey, I think it is this issue. I think they've experienced this, to be able to provide kind of quicker insights for better care faster. And, to do that, it does need a lot of work. We're going to be working with lots of data, but the hope is to be able to add these sensitivities and add these big data sets for more personalized care quicker.
That's amazing. Amazing. So has there been a dramatic increase in the rate of suicides over there since the war?
I don't know the exact numbers for suicide, but, historically, even in the United States, the group that is most vulnerable to this are veterans. You have people they've
Yeah.
seen a lot, they've experienced a lot. And even in America, we have a underdeveloped mental health care system to support people who need it. Whether,
Oh, yeah.
getting care and funding for it or just lack of resources.
Right.
The other issue would be some people don't know they need care, and they're suffering, they're depressed, and they don't know they need that. I will say that when it comes to AI, it's been clinically shown to be quite accurate at predicting people who may be more suicidal or more prone to suicide.
Yeah.
And that's something we're hoping to at some point implement in there. Right now, we're taking the very cautious route. So as soon as we get any kind of flag, it's going to refer out. But we hope that as this model increases and we add in all this clinical research, we'll be able to predict that quite early on, so that we can refer it and flag it and get it in front of the people who can directly help these individuals.
Wow. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. So your other company, X2, that's an AI
Mhm.
company. So you're using that technology to help with this program as
Correct.
well, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and so that company is all about ethical AI. is this part of, kind of the mental health? Can you kind of explain more what ethical AI means and why it's so important with the rise of AI so quickly?
So AI has a very rapid rise in the last 2 years. It's
Yeah.
a new technology, but since ChatGPT came out, you just see the use and the applications increasing massively, including, in energy. They've seen the global energy usage for AI was about, I think, 2 to 3%. And since ChatGPT came out, by the end of 2030, they're anticipating it'll be around 5 to 6%. Just huge usage. Our goal and what we've seen with AI and AI development, particularly in some of the regions that I've spent time in, you see it in parts of Africa, you see it in Kenya. People have not been the best hirers in AI. AI is not just something you pull up on your laptop and it works and it's a magical black box. It has many, many different parts. It requires a lot of people to train it to increase the accuracy.
Yeah.
AI has not, we think, been incredibly ethical in the supply chain for the development. You see people in countries like the Philippines and in Kenya who have gotten hired for whether it's data annotation or content moderation. They really have gone through quite a bit. Whether you focus on content moderation, you have a group in Kenya. They've been moderating photos and content and seeing kind of the worst of the worst from social media platforms that somebody has to manually filter to train AI to do that. These people are underpaid. They work a lot. There's not a lot of benefits. It's kind of promoting this gig style economy there. Our approach is quite different. We're working with universities and with students and, making sure that we're paying livable wages and, paying
Yeah.
what's relevant on ground to support this. And we're very careful with the applications of AI. There's quite a bit of things, whether it's content moderation or content production. We've heard of kind of the deep fakes and some of the bad industries that AI and image generation can produce, for example. And so we're quite cautious about the applications. Our goal is to focus on kind of the picks and shovels and backbones, develop out language models in languages that haven't been really focused on yet. And then from
Okay.
there, we're going to make sure that we keep an eye on what it actually gets applied to is our goal.
Wow, I mean, it's amazing. And it's going to be amazing kind of where this evolves to. Some people are like, AI is going to kill us, but I think it's like anything. It's something new, something that's going to upgrade life, make life easier, but it's being successful in life. It's adjusting. It's learning new skills and adapting because change is inevitable and it's a good thing.
I absolutely agree with you, and it can be a good thing. Depends on how you apply it, of course. And we've
Yeah.
seen this a lot. If you look at a technological development over the last 100 years, new tool comes out, people are concerned it's gonna,
Yeah.
ruin life as we know it, and then life goes on. You see the pattern repeat. I think AI will be similar. It will absolutely fundamentally shift how we do some things. It's just, and it can be a good thing. You look at what AI can do when you combine big data and AI, you get incredible predictions. You can help predict, diseases or sickness before they happen.
Isn't
You
that
can,
amazing?
you know,
Oh,
things like suicide, you can really use it incredibly for prediction. But, one thing we really advocate for is human in the loop. AI is for people. We're developing products that we want to use. A machine cannot dictate what we want to use and how we should use it and these things that we need to be deciding. Um, I think the latest number I saw was that AI will affect 47% of jobs in some way. More than likely, that's going to continue to grow as AI gets more advanced and developed. But I think it's the fact that you use it to augment stuff, not fully replace. You put a focus on reskilling people, reworking, groups that may have worked on things like data annotation. At some point, more than likely, machines will be trained to annotate data by itself because you have generative learning AIs.
yeah.
Skill the people. I think that is something that's going to be fundamental going forward is we have to continue to re-educate groups that may be displaced from AI and continue to have
Right.
them managing it versus just, if we don't place a focus on it, then yeah, you can see why people will be scared because you just assume, this machine is going to take my job. I think
Right.
policy will be needed around that. I think that's something that's going to be very interesting to see play out globally. You have countries taking massively different approaches on how they want to regulate AI and big data and data centers. China's going the surveillance state route. The EU is pretty strict, and I think the US still has a lot of work to do to develop out what we want to do with that. I think typically, you see the US become kind of the standard for a lot of this stuff, and I'm hoping they do in AI because, being on the back end side where we see
Yeah.
data points and collection, you can learn a lot about people, and that can be good, that can be bad. It depends on who's using it, who's collecting it, how it's applied. So I would like to see a little bit more policy come out about AI. It's tough though because it's very rapidly evolving and adapting, but I think we'll need similar teams on the policy side to rapidly adapt and keep up with it as well.
Yeah, because it's scary. I mean, people can basically like hear your voice. All you have to do is say hello if somebody calls, and then they have your voice and can call your family and be like, and it sounds like you. I mean, you hear about this. It's scary.
Sometimes, and it's easy to, I guess, overlook it because, like there's some things like your phone ads when they're so perfectly personalized, you're like, this is kind of cool. But then you really think about it and you're like, how does my phone know so much about me? So, I guess it has
Oh,
this double-edged sword for like convenience, and then, privacy is the new luxury. You're kind of like, huh,
yes.
don't want my phone to know so much about me.
I know. And they always say like it's always listening, and it's just like, oh gosh, it's a little much. So yeah, there definitely needs to be some more protection around that because some of these the AI images are not where they need to be. You can totally tell they look horrible. Um, and those need to improve. But yeah, it's like you can, superimpose pictures and of people that in incriminating things that didn't do it. So,
Absolutely.
there's that.
And I
There's
mean, I will say some of the more, commercially available, like Chat GPT, you go generate a picture, you can kind of tell it has that look, but on some models, when they generate stuff, it is incredibly realistic. I mean, even with, you see some of the deep fake videos that come
yeah,
out. I mean, it is shocking how quickly they have improved in their look and feel. Yes, there's still things we can do, but even on that protection side of filtering for fake images, for fake videos, we're going to have to step up our game on that. You're really going to need AI to fight AI because people are going to get to a point, they don't know the difference. And I heard an interesting kind of insight too. It's how do you sway people who have already seen a fake image or a fake video? It's really hard to go back and take away that first impression that they got. And
oh,
I thought about that. I was like, you know what? It's kind of true. Even if I heard or saw a video of somebody doing something incriminating, that is the part that's going to stick in my head, not someone going back and taking it back or redacting it. It's going to be that first shock value that you see, which is kind of a
right.
thought.
Oh, it's totally frightening because it can happen to any of us. Nobody's like innocent. So yeah, there definitely needs to be policy around that. So have you always been a business risk taker?
Yes, I've always been a
Okay.
risk taker, not particularly in business, probably since childhood. My mom would always complain at me that I was way too risk tolerant. I was the kid who was like on the top of the tree, trying to drive their car very early, just kind of consistently. My mom's like, you need to increase your impulse control. So it's always been very natural to me. And then some things that people think are risky just haven't registered to me as risky, like going to Ukraine. I just feel like it's something I have to do. Going to,
Yeah.
countries like Iraq or Rwanda, to me it's not risky. It's going and keeping and being open-minded and working in the global economy.
Yeah. That's amazing. And that's another amazing. So, taking risks, not being afraid is a huge skill that's made you successful, but also you just mentioned it, being open-minded.
I would say those are probably open-mindedness may probably be the number one trait that I'm, I guess if you had to pick something you like, I've always been pretty open to hearing both sides, whether it's
It's important.
the states and we have the different political parties, because when you don't listen or you're not open to it, I mean, sometimes you can really get cemented in your views, which aren't the best. But you have, and we do this a lot because different countries, different
Yeah.
cultures, you get all kinds of spectrums of thinking. And every time, whether it's and luckily for us, we're in technology, so it's a little bit less polarizing when we have discussions. But just having the open-mindedness, you get better outcomes. You think through more problems. You see other things that, oh, maybe I could improve there a little bit. And so that's been, I think, fundamental to what we've done, including with Ukraine. We don't want to go in and bring our goal and our solution and our vision and say, this is going to, solve this crisis. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
about working with this other perspective, with what this other country wants to do, with what they think is right for them, and adjusting our
Yeah.
that. And I think that open-mindedness helps do that, because we're very open to it. And we're like, okay, let's shift here, and we learn in the process, and it makes us more adaptable. And also it helps us fit in better. And I've kind of kept that approach personally, and also when it comes to business or research or, entering different universities, it's being
Yeah.
open to, the constructive criticism, the ideas, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Absolutely, especially when you're dealing with so many different cultures and how people do things, just a very different, you can't be so narrow-minded of, it's my way or the highway. So that's amazing. So how can people find out more about you, and how can they help in your initiative with, combating the mental health crisis of really the world?
So we have mentalhelp.global. It's up and running. We're
Okay.
so excited to get people on board to
Yeah.
us and join us in this. So people are, I'm not big on social media, but I do have a LinkedIn. People are always welcome to reach out to me on there if they want to support what we're doing in Ukraine or elsewhere. We're very
Yeah.
open, very thankful to have that help. We're going to continue to expand the Mental Health Global website. Right now, it's relatively shut down because we're going through the demo mode. So you can't
Hmm.
actually access the AI yet. We want to make sure it's quite up to speed, but you can
Absolutely.
donate stuff. You can see contact info on there as well.
Okay.
People are always welcome to reach out to us with any questions about how it works or how they can get involved.
Well, that's amazing. Okay. So yeah, definitely check out our LinkedIn page and go to mentalhealth.global to learn more about the amazing work that you guys are all doing. Thank you so much for everything and being such a inspirational and compassionate, amazing human being.
Thank you so much for having me on and giving me the
Yeah.
platform to talk about this, and maybe a little bit different scope. Luckily, you just had Mitzi, so I'm sure you have friends to Ukraine who are listening to this, and we'd
Yeah.
absolutely love to have them get involved in us. And we're very thankful to everyone who did stick around and listen to all that I had to say about it.
Yeah. Well, you're extremely impressive, extremely well spoken, and you're amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you to everybody who's listening. We'll see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.